yesterday that we should take on and like carry it with us to sessions to sit on. I think I'm going to test out the microphone so that I'm not like screaming at all of you the whole time. I just don't want it to be too loud and crazy. How does that sound? Yeah. Okay. That way I'll try to stay in this vicinity so that I'm not yelling at everybody the whole time. I think we can probably get started. I'm just waiting for everyone to come in and have a seat. It's 10:45, so we'll get going. So hopefully I can get through everything that I've brought to share with you and leave a little bit of time at the end for questions for those who have any. I'll start off with just some introductions. My name is Hannah Irian-Frake. I am a third grade teacher at the Lewisburg Area School District. I'm in my 5th year at Lewisburg. Prior to that, I taught 2nd grade for 7 years in the Halifax Area School District, which is closer to Harrisburg. In my current position, I'm semi-departmentalized, so I teach 2 classes reading, and then my partner teacher teaches math to both of those classes. So I chose to focus my session on kind of that literacy and reading piece, since that's what I'm doing most of my day. But a lot of the things I'll share with you definitely have like other applications in other content areas as well. So I included some of the ways to contact me or follow me if you're interested. And then I also wanted to share up front, because they ask us to now, that I am both a Seesaw ambassador and an Epic master teacher. And even if I weren't those things, I would still love those apps and share them with you anyways. So we'll kind of dive in. I just wanted to kind of set sort of my focus before I started, in that in my classroom I'm really focusing on that literacy piece first, and then the technology comes in second. So literacy is the focus, technology is the tool. I think a lot of teachers, that's how they want technology to work in their classroom anyways. So, but that's where I'm coming from as well. And then I also really like to make that technology piece kind of serve 2 purposes. One, that it helps students engage with literacy instruction and practice in my classroom in a way that is more exciting for them, more meaningful for them. And then I also, as the teacher, really want technology to make my life easier. So I want to be able to monitor and assess a student's literacy development and kind of what they're doing more efficiently. And so a lot of the technology that I'm going to share with you serves both of those purposes. I'm going to focus mostly on my 3 favorite apps that I use, Epic, Seesaw, and Nearpod. And I have a couple others that I sprinkled in that I use more to pull into Seesaw especially. But those are the big 3. So I thought, can I just kind of poll the crowd and see how familiar we are with those? If you have heard of Epic or use Epic, okay, so we know Epic. I'll still kind of go over like a brief what it is, but how about Seesaw? Okay, and then Nearpod? Okay, so I will for each of those kind of share what it is for those who aren't familiar quickly, but then I'm going to dive into how I use that more in my classroom. So if you have any questions throughout, please feel free to just raise your hand and I'd be happy to stop. Sometimes I forget what I know and what I don't know, and so if something's confusing, just raise your hand and I'll be happy to answer questions. So I'm going to sidestep just for a minute because I always want to share this with teachers who maybe don't know about these resources. So if we're talking about literacy, then we need things to read. And these are some of my favorite places to find things to read. Newsela and readworks.org are both more like articles, shorter texts that are really great to pull things off of the internet. Newsela has really awesome like current events topics, things that are very interesting to kids. They have a table downstairs as well. I saw them yesterday. so you can stop and check them out. They have free articles, and then they have a paid option as well. Readworks.org is free for everyone. Both Readworks and Newsela, you can search for like reading level or topic, or if you want fiction or nonfiction, so they have some really nice filters that you can use as well. Epic obviously is an awesome one. I'll get more into that on the next slide. Epic is free for teachers. Reading A to Z is another place I like to look for some leveled material. You can get a free trial, and then they do have a yearly cost as well. They're also downstairs. And I was chatting with them yesterday, and they were telling me about all their new things, which was really exciting as well. And then if you haven't heard of Books, you need to hear of Books. Has anyone in here heard of Books before? Okay, so my understanding is that it's relatively new, and the title kind of gives it away. They're video books. They've taken popular picture books and turned them into videos to watch. And they are right now doing a free year trial for teachers, so if you go to their website, you can sign up. But they're really awesome to use if you need a break from reading aloud, or if you're having like indoor recess, or if you have like some time to fill. But I also really love using them if we have a certain reading skill we're working on. I'll look for the right, like a picture book that really is strong in that skill. Like if we're studying a theme, find a great picture book that has really obvious themes in it, show the kids, and then they can write about the video. And so we've eliminated the difficulty of reading the text if we're really just focused on the comprehension piece. So definitely check out Books if you've never heard of it. So in that kind of lit text theme, we'll hop into Epic. I also put pictures of my own kiddos, my students, in this slide too, so you'll see them using a lot of what we use in the classroom. So it does seem like a majority of us have heard of Epic before, so I'll go through really quick and just hit the highlights. Epic is free for teachers, and I hope it always stays that way. It works during school hours, and that's what keeps it just for teachers. So like in the evenings and on the weekends, it won't work. My kids always at the beginning of the year try to log on at home and go, it's not working. And so it's not free at home, it's free at school. So, but families can pay for a monthly subscription. Epic is often called the Netflix of books. It's kind of set up similarly. And it's for families that connect to a classroom teacher, it's $5.99 a month for the Epic subscription, which kind of seems pricey, but then I also think about if you're buying your kid a book, one book a month, that's probably about how much you're spending. So then you've got this access to this huge library. So within Epic, you can set up your class roster and then monitor your students' reading. You can create collections of books to send to kids. You can search pre-existing collections. You can create quizzes. A lot of books come with quizzes for kids to take at the end. And then even within Epic, you can search for books with different filters, and I'll show you that in a little bit. One of my favorite things about Epic is that not only does it have text for students to read, but it also has read-to-me books, and it has audio books on it. And I'll go into those a little bit on the next slide. And then for anyone who does use Epic, who didn't already know this, there are learning videos, but you can turn them off. So mine are always off unless I turn them on for like a special treat, or if they want to check them out at recess. There's a lot of Minecraft ones that they get kind of sucked into. And if we're using them for reading, I don't want them like over on their iPad watching a video. So that's probably one of the first things that I love about Epic, is how much it increases reading engagement in my own classroom. And if we want kids to become lifelong readers, they have to love reading. And Epic really does that for me in my classroom. So it's been a game changer for those reluctant readers. You probably all have in your classroom, if you're a classroom teacher or even an interventionist or a specialist, those students who they're not going to read. If you tell them, hey, you need to go read this book, they'll open the book up and they'll sit there and they'll stare at it, but they're not reading it, they're just looking at it. Or they're picking books that are really easy for them, or they're just humoring me and going, yeah, okay, all right. And so those kids, I feel like I suck them in with those audiobooks and those read-to-me books. And so when I have that choice between a kid that's faking it, just sitting there with a book, not reading at all, and a kid who's sitting and listening to fluent reading, they're hearing that vocabulary, they're building that background knowledge, I'm going to choose Epic every time. And what I find with my kiddos is usually they'll say, oh, I like this book, I really like Epic, I'm going to start looking around and checking out what's in there. Students can also search on Epic for things they're interested in. So they can go right into the search bar and type in, like if they really love learning about frogs, they can type in frogs and all these books will come up. And so they can really hone in on topics of interest versus having to search for those books in a classroom or in a library. And Epic also starts to make recommendations for kids as it kind of learns what they like. So on their profile, it will start making suggestions for them based on the things that they read, which I think is really cool. As a teacher, you can monitor what students are reading and how long they're spending in each book that they're reading. This is always a problem that I have at the beginning of the year, where kids realize that they earn badges on Epic for finishing books. So they like to open up a book and flip through and hit finish, and they never read it, and they're like, look, I've got 47 badges I earned. And so I have to always remind kids at the beginning of the year that I can go in and I can see what you're reading and how long you're reading it. So when I look at the teacher side of the website, and I see that you've read 10 books, but each book you read in 3 seconds, I know you're flipping through the book. Or if I'm looking at the whole class and how many books have been read, and most kids have read maybe 30 books, and you've read 400 books, just happened at the beginning of the year, so I know you're flipping through books. And so they learn pretty quickly that I'm watching and they can't do that, and they kind of get over it. And so I really like that Epic includes that, your ability to sort of monitor what they're watching. But then on the flip side, it also helps you if you say, this kid is always reading books about history, or this kid is always reading nonfiction texts. That helps me make some decisions in what I'm going to choose for them in small group reading as well. So I did a lot of these pictures up here are kids that are some of my reluctant readers in my classroom, and they pull out Epic all the time to listen. My kids, when we practice cursive, can we listen to audiobooks while we're doing our cursive? I said, sure, pop your headphones on, listen to your book, and you can practice your cursive. I have a student who loves to draw, so he'll watch the Read to Me books and try and draw the things that are in his book. So he's doing something he wants to do while also listening to reading. So, and then a lot of my kids choose Epic during free choice time anyways, which always makes my teacher heart happy. The last idea on this slide I wanted to share, it's not an original idea that I came up with, it's one that I've seen all over Instagram lately called First Chapter Friday. So the idea is that you take a chapter book and you only read the first chapter to your class. So you pick a book that you think would be interesting to whatever grade level you're working with, and you only read the first chapter, you don't read anything else. And then hopefully you've hooked some kids, you've kind of sucked them in and they are interested in finishing the book. And so I choose books that I intentionally have multiple copies of so that I can let kids borrow them. Because if they've got to wait, 2 or 3 months for their turn, they've lost interest. But Epic makes this really easy too, because you can pick a book on Epic to read the beginning of, and then every kid has a copy of the book. So if they're interested in checking it out, they can go do that too. So we do that every Friday. I read the first chapter or the beginning of a book, and then I say, I'm done. If you want to finish it, you can finish it. So, one of the other ways that I use Epic, and these next 2 slides kind of go together, is it really allows me to differentiate with my students based on interest and reading level in a way that is so much easier than heading down to the book room in my school or searching through books that I have. So you can search for collections, but you can also make your own collection in the classroom. And usually I stick within a topic. So I have 2 images up here. The one on the left is kind of the teacher view. So we're in the middle of our state research projects. And they're hard for a lot of kids to do that research and find that information and then put it down in a report. And so I have 3 different collections that I send to them that they can use. And you'll see, I'm going to move away from the microphone so I can point to it. But right here, this one is ages 9 to 12. So these are much higher reading level texts. They would be, for some of my kids who are at a higher reading level, can find a lot more information in those. This one is 7 through 12, so it kind of spans a larger grade level. And the one down here is 7 through 9, so it's written at a lower reading level. So my kids who are struggling, these state books at the bottom there are that like just the basic facts for about different states. But then when you pop over to the student view, they don't see any of that. So they think I'm just sending them state books. And so I can say to certain kids, hey, I want you to go check out the one that's called Visiting the States. You're going to find a lot of good information in there. Or, you know what, have you checked out Exploring the States? Because that one is going to be a good fit for you. So you can kind of modify that. I also love you. This is one of my small groups, and they are diving into a book about Martin Luther King Jr., which ties into what we're doing in reading. And so for the first read through, I had them do the Read to Me book, and they just listened to the whole book to kind of build that background knowledge. And then we'll dive into parts of it in our second read and third read. And then it's also, Epic's fantastic for small group when you need to find text to use with kids. So you can search by topic, fiction, nonfiction. I'm going to show you where these are next. I'm going to pop out and show you the website. They also have tons of different reading level options depending on what your district might use. If you use guided reading or Lexile or any of those. And then if you are one-to-one with students, every kid has a copy of the text to use. So it saves a lot of time as a teacher, not having to run down and find books and seeing if you have enough copies and figuring all that out. So this picture, this is a group, we're working on penguins in small groups, and then I realized in my picture I have another student choosing to read on Epic in the background. So I had to give him a shout out. So I'm gonna try and pop out and go into, just so I can show you what the kind of teacher sees when they go into Epic, hopefully. There we go. So this is my side of the website where you can see, here's my kids, what they've been reading today in school while I'm not there. And so up here is where you can see their different students. So if I click on my students, it takes me into my roster, and you can see which kids are connected at home and all of their different profiles. And I could go in and add kids and edit kids here if I needed to. When I go over to class log, this shows me what the kids have been reading most recently. And so it shows me Karina just read a book about Smurfs, and she was in the book for 7 minutes, and it was 54 pages, and she did that today, and she finished it. So that might be a book where I look and say, could I read 54 pages in 7 minutes? Maybe, if it's short, I'll go check it out. Or you can see, like, Sean sampled this book, decided, it wasn't for me, probably went and found a different one. All right, so it shows me their progress through books as well. These are the Goosebump audiobooks that my class is obsessed with right now. They're listening to them all the time. But then if I go into student logs, this is where I can look at individual students, and I can see how many books they've finished and how many hours they've spent reading. And if I pop in and look at a particular student, I can go through and see all the different books that they've been reading and how long they've spent. And then if I had assignments and quizzes I assigned, this is where I can go in and see how kids did on those different activities. So my library is where I keep all my favorite things, but I wanted to show you the Explore section just quickly. This is where you can search on for whatever topic or book you're looking for. So if, say, I wanted to find, in science we're studying life cycles, small group reading, I want them reading books about life cycles. So if I type in life cycles and search, that's not accurate. Let's go back. Do I have anything? Please work. I just did this last night and purposely picked that topic, so you're not telling me there's nothing. Here it comes. No. Let's see if I'm in the wrong place. Let's go home. There we go. I don't know why I was doing that under Explore. But so you can see here it's showing me everything. I can narrow down if I only want books, if I want videos, if I want just read to me books, if I only want audiobooks, or if I want to see what other collections have been created. But then as I look down, I can see every book tells me the age level, the reading level, page number, whether it has a quiz. And then I can add those filters to search too. If I want a certain age, if I want a reading level, I have mine set for guided reading level, but you can switch it to the other systems. If I want it to be fiction or nonfiction, there are some books in other languages. And then I can also say I only want books with quizzes. So from here I can create collections, I can assign to certain kids, and I can really look for, you know, high interest books to use when I'm teaching small groups. Any questions about Epic before I dive into kind of the next app?
So you said you can control the videos, whether they see them or not. Can you control anything else, like whether or not they have access to audiobooks or?
No, I can't turn off like audiobooks or read to me. If I'm in my account settings, this is where I can turn off my learning videos. I also really recommend turning off allowing students to create profiles, because if they can create their own profile, they can start naming them really weird things and they can do weird stuff in them, and it's just, I don't see any reason why they need to do that. So I create their profile and they log on to that. And the classroom code is how they connect, and then their iPad will remember our classroom code every time. They just have to select their name every time they open the Epic app.
Specialists, so I have lots of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Do you happen to know, is there a limit on numbers of kids?
I don't know off the top of my head.
There is, because I had to contact them about kindergarten, so we didn't have to.
Okay.
So they technically have
Right.
like 40 some kids, like, so I think their limit is, I think the limit is 40.
There might be a limit. I have between my two classes about 40 kids, and I've added my own children at home. So I'm not sure.
So I
yeah.
contacted them, they were like fine, like they just let, I think they had them just create another one with a fake email, a personal email address.
Yeah. I can look for that answer for you
Yeah,
too.
I'm pretty sure it's 40.
The other option as well with Epic, if you are wanting lots of kids to access and maybe don't want them each to have their own profile, you can always, there's a guest login, they can always log in as a guest. Now that isn't great if you want them to have kind of that customized experience with Epic, but I know like our librarian will let them get on as a guest in the library and look for books that way. Yep.
I was going to ask you that as a librarian, would I have to be connected by the teacher to the classroom teacher? I don't understand how that, because I know my classroom teachers use it.
Mhm.
I'm just not sure the best way for me to get in on it and use it.
Yeah, you could have your own separate account that you have kids connect through. If each classroom teacher would have their own classroom code, mine is this, you can't see it there, I forget where it went. Oh, that RHX code. So each class would have a different one if the teacher has set up their own account. But if a kid used that code on a different iPad, they could still get into their class, their profile
So
as
I
well.
would under the teachers and have to connect to that.
You could have, probably if they already have one with their teachers, that would be the easiest way for them instead of having two separate profiles. Yep.
And students get on Epic if you don't have iPads.
You- You could get on, yeah, you can do it on like a computer and get on. Yeah. Okay. All right, let me pop back in. Okay. So Seesaw is my favorite app for one-to-one classrooms, especially at the elementary level. So a lot of you seemed familiar with Seesaw, but I'll just real quick go through some of the details. So Seesaw has a free version, and you can do a lot with the free version. It's definitely a great place to start. But then if you want some of the premium tools, it's $120 a year for one teacher. You can try the 60-day trial for free that they put out when you sign up. They'll send you information about it. But then Seesaw for Schools is something that your building or district could sign up for to give all teachers the premium Seesaw tools. Or if you are in love with Seesaw like I am and you want all the premium tools, you can become a Seesaw ambassador through their ambassador program, which was my number one motivation for why I became a Seesaw ambassador, is I wanted all of it for free. So it's an online like class basically that you take, and I also would recommend it if you're new to Seesaw and just want to really understand how it works, because it takes you through everything that Seesaw can do. So it's very helpful if you're a newbie to Seesaw as well. So I would recommend that for sure. You also within Seesaw set up your class roster, And it works really well with one-to-one, but you can also use it with shared devices. So within your Seesaw settings, you choose. You say whether you're a one-to-one classroom or a shared device classroom. And then if you're one-to-one, it will keep the kids logged in on their profile. If you're shared, it logs them out every time they close the app, and they just have to click their name each time they open it. So you can create activities within Seesaw, and they also have the Seesaw activity library where you can search for things and see if other people have created activities that you want to steal and use. So it has awesome built-in tools for feedback. You can leave feedback in the comments section. Kids love when you leave comments on their work in their journal. And also, if you have the premium tools, they have a new send back feature that they just came out with, where you can send their work back to the student as a draft, so it doesn't post in their journal. It sends it back, and they see kind of your notes, like, hey, you gotta fix this part, or you gotta do this part again. And then also, I love that you can connect families to the student journals, so families can see what kids are doing on Seesaw at home. And parents can also leave comments on their students' work, which is also highly motivating for my third graders. I imagine it would be for a lot of others. So the nice thing about Seesaw is there's a lot of options for letting kids see each other's work or not. I have that turned off in my room. They only see their own journal. Whether they can post on other students' work can be turned on or off. So there's a lot of options for how you use it within your class with your student. So my #1 favorite way to use Seesaw is for fluency. So as a classroom teacher, it is impossible to get around and listen to every kid read as often as I want and as often as I really should to be hearing that oral reading. And fluency, or Seesaw, has been a game changer for that, because they can record themselves reading on Seesaw, and then as the teacher, you can go and listen to it during your prep, at home. I do it a lot in the evening, and then my own kids are like, who's that reading on your computer? So my kids, they do a lot of student choice reading, where I say read something to me and they get to pick. They might take a screenshot off Epic, they might take a picture of a real book and then they read it. Or sometimes I send them things. I want everybody to read this today. So I haven't tried it yet, but in theory you could send them, you know, maybe their progress monitoring passage and have them read it, and then you can sit there and time it and do your check while you have more free time, instead of having to manage all the other kids being noisy in the classroom while you're trying to pull kids to read. So just in general, the time that kids are spending reading just increases so much when you use Seesaw. So these are all kids reading. I've got a kid reading a poem that I gave everyone to read. They are reading screenshots off of Epic down here. My friend Kennedy has her head in a booth, and I will show you those later on, what they look like. And then I also so I take time at the beginning of the year to teach the kids, like, when you're recording on Seesaw, this is what I need from you. And I made it as a poster. If any of you are on Teachers Pay Teachers, it's free in my TPT store, so feel free to go grab that. But we talk about you need a quiet spot. That's what the recording booths are for. Make sure you look at what you're going to read before you read it, so that you know, maybe read through it once and then record it the second time. Use a clear voice, use good expression. I'm not interested in speed reading. Be careful that you're reading your words accurately. And then the last one says, yay, you're a fluent reader. So let me show you the recording booths, and we call them our picture assistants. So the booths are just those like collapsible cubes that go in the cube shelves that you can get at even Walmart or Target. And then I bought the foam on Amazon and just kind of stuffed it in as like a barrier for kids. I use little Velcro dots, but honestly, I didn't need them. They fall off. It kind of stays in snugly anyways. And they put their iPad in there, and then they stick their head inside, and they just record it, and it kind of buffers out all the sound. And I just store them on shelves. I was gonna bring one today, and then I had visions of me like walking around Pete and C with this big cube, and I thought, well, that'd be, I don't know, draw a lot of attention to myself. These are just those locker shelves that you can buy for kids, like high school or middle school kids who have lockers. And so you just set your iPad on top of it and make sure the camera's between one of the little squares, and then you don't see any of the top, and you just set your, whatever you're gonna take a picture of underneath, because little kids have a hard time holding it steady, hitting the button. And so this way, they can hold their book if they need to and use one finger to touch the picture. So, just sharing. Also not original ideas, completely stolen from Instagram and Pinterest. Seesaw is also amazing for different word work activities, and I just use that term word work to cover a whole lot of different things. So you could do phonemic awareness activities, phonics, sight words, spelling, grammar, vocab, sky's the limit. The Seesaw Resource Library is your best friend for this. Like we were doing homophones. I went and typed homophones, tons of things came up. I don't have to make them, I just take them and use them. Or if, you know, we're working on short versus long vowel sounds, I'll type that in and activities come up. So this Magnetic ABC, I don't know if anyone's heard of that app. It's free. You only want the free version because the paid version has all these other pictures that kids will use instead of letters. So that's one's like you only want free, don't buy it. And it's like the letter magnets that you have on your fridge that kids can pull up and spell things with. So a lot of times I'll have kids put words in ABC order or put their spelling words on there. Then they just take a picture of it and upload it on Seesaw. So down here, I use Words Their Way in my classroom, so we do a lot of word sorting. So I have this one, we do it with the cards too. This one is just a worksheet where they had to write them as well. So they took a picture of it, they have to read the words in each category and then explain why they sorted it that way. So it's, again, just like with fluency, it's hard to get around to every student in your classroom and look at their word sort and ask them, why did you sort it that way? What was the pattern? That's hard to do in one class period. So if you have every kid doing it and the expectation is then you take a picture and read it and explain it on Seesaw, now I've got all that great data. I can see every kid's work and it stays in their journal. So on the far side, they're doing an activity where they were building words with different suffixes. We had some Y to I words that they had to manipulate, get rid of the Y, add the I, and then add ES. And then in the middle there, that's one of my small groups. One of my higher small group work, I'd taken a picture of a page in the text we were reading. We highlighted the vocabulary words that we were focusing on. They used the typing tool to type the definition for each word and stick it next to the highlighted word. And then there was this silly poem about gross food that I made them record themselves reading, all in that same activity, and then they sent it to me. So I could probably have done a whole presentation on word work activities, but I'm just trying to give you a snapshot there. I also love Seesaw as a way to keep kids accountable for small group independent work. So this is a system that I created that works in my room, and again, I shared it for free on Teachers Pay Teachers, so feel free to go check it. You can edit all of it. So my kids have these 9, we call them tic-tac-toe boards, 9 activities that they need to do while I'm meeting with small groups. So this would be like your centers or your stations or your independent work time. And almost every single thing I have them do, there's some component that has to be put on Seesaw. And so that's the accountability piece. They know I'm going to see their work. They know their families are going to see their work, so they better be doing their work. They can't sit there and goof around instead. And those are different ideas. And then this picture is a picture of me at home. I sit with my computer, and next to me I have this little checklist, and I just check off what I'm approving on Seesaw so I can kind of see who's done what, how far they are, if they're getting things done. If they're not getting anything done, I can check in with them the next day as well. So it's definitely a great accountability piece in the classroom. I love using it for task cards. Sometimes people call them scoop activities. Does anyone use task cards a lot? It's my favorite way to worksheet. So you take like the practice activities or each worksheet question, put it on a card, hang it around your classroom. And then I upload the answer sheet onto Seesaw. The kids have their iPad and they're walking around the classroom, putting their answers on Seesaw on the iPad. They send it to me and they're done. So it's got, instead of sitting at their desk doing a worksheet, they're still doing the content of the worksheet, but they're up moving around and incorporating some of that movement into our day. So, and then my last slide about Seesaw is just how awesome it is to be able to share things that you do in your classroom with families at home. And I have a lot of parents that will add comments, they say sweet things, they ask their kids questions, and the kids love it. So the engagement is just through the roof with that. The nice thing about Seesaw too is that a lot of work you do in other apps can be uploaded through Seesaw, and so it's a great way to share those things at home with parents as well. So we do some green screening projects in my classroom, and we just upload the video to Seesaw, and so the parents can see it that way. I do a lot with Chatterpix. Heard of Chatterpix? That's just like a fun app. This particular activity is one of my small reading groups. The boys in the group read the book, What If You Had Animal Teeth? And so our focus skill during that time was main idea. And so I wanted them to practice writing a main idea paragraph. And so they had to pick one animal. If I had animal teeth, I would want, we have great white shark and Bengal tiger were the two most popular. And then they had to come up with 3 reasons why from the text and write their paragraph. And so then we took 5 to 10 minutes. They found a picture, they put it on Chatterpix, made the mouth move, recorded themselves reading their paragraph, and then they uploaded it to Seesaw. And so it's that little extra piece that makes it, I was making you write main idea paragraphs, but you were having fun because you knew you got to put it on Chatterpix and then on Seesaw. So another thing I always do with my kiddos is anytime we have a published piece of writing, I make them take a picture of their published piece of writing and record themselves reading it on Seesaw as a way to share their writing with their families at home. And bonus, as a teacher, you can grade it with your rubric while you're listening to them read it, which is a really nice, efficient way to use Seesaw as well. So, and I put in all those apps that we learn about when we're here, that you've got this list of I gotta try this one and this one and this one. It's a good chance you can upload it on Seesaw to share it with parents at home. And the kids, they have their journal where they have all their work and they can go back and look at the things that they've done from the beginning of the year, the middle of the year. Hey, remember when we did this project? I want to go watch that again and see what that is. So, for the sake of time, if you are interested in seeing some of the Seesaw features, like real time, I'd be happy to show you that at the end of the presentation. But I'm going to pop into the next app just to make sure I get time to share. Did anyone have any Seesaw questions before I slide into Nearpod? Yeah.
Will this be available for us to look at, a link to your presentation?
Yeah, I need to try and figure out how to put it up on the PETC website.
Okay.
But I would be happy if you wanted to. I can always just email it to you as well too. If you wanted to hang out and give me your email, I'd be happy to share it. Okay, so Nearpod has been around for a while, and Nearpod for me is kind of that comprehension piece in my literacy classroom. I use it mostly in 2 ways that really help me with making sure every student is answering every question that I ask, and that I can see how they're doing in real time when I'm teaching the lesson, and then also afterwards. So anyone who's not familiar with Nearpod, they do have a free version. A lot of what I do you can accomplish with the free version. The paid version has really awesome extra features as well. Nearpod is here today too. We have a booth downstairs in the exhibit room as well. So you can create your own lessons in Nearpod, and you can also search for pre-made lessons to use. You can set your Nearpod up to be a live lesson where you're in front of the class and you're teaching it. And so for those of you not familiar with Nearpod, the student sees the presentation on their device, and the teacher for the live lesson is controlling it on their device, what pages they flip through. Or you can use it as a student-paced activity, which a lot of times I'll use if I have a quiz or questions I want kids to answer. I'll send it as student-paced. They can work through it at their own speed. They can move through the slides on their own. Nearpod does work better if you have one-to-one devices. It's not really, the other apps you can use if you have shared devices. This is a hard one to do with that, unless you could have kids working together. And then I love how it collects that real-time data for kids. So Nearpod is awesome for building background knowledge with kids. And I almost last night added a million things to this slide, because yesterday I went to Greg Macer's session about adding Google virtual tours into Nearpod, and I was like, I had no idea. So what I'm going to show you is just, I've been limited with what Nearpod has had to use, and now I'm like, have this whole new world opened up to me if you're familiar with Google Tours. But they do have virtual reality field trips that you can go on, that kids can kind of look around.
Are you able to do this with the free version?
some of them are free, not all of them, but some of them. When you search, one of the options you can choose is to only be shown free activities. So you can eliminate all the ones that you go, oh, never mind, it's paid. So, or you can sweet talk your district into buying you. That's not always as easy as you think. But they also have partnered with vocabulary, so they have some really awesome vocabulary videos as well. So just one example that in my room, we are in the middle of kind of learning about the civil rights movement, and also our focus skill is cause and effect, so we're putting those two together. And there is, this one's free, a Martin Luther King Jr. Pre-made activity where it goes through, it has a vocabulary video which tells all about him and what his beliefs were. And then later in the same Nearpod activity, it takes kids on a virtual field trip to the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in Washington, D.C., and they can kind of look around. You see them with their iPads sort of moving and looking around. So, we're in central Pennsylvania. We can't go to these places, but we can through Nearpod and through our iPads. So just setting that stage and background knowledge for them. We also teach Sadako and the 1,000 Paper Cranes, and there's another freebie one that takes you to Japan, where you can see some of the memorial buildings from the atomic bomb dropping. So they can sort of go in and see that in real time as well. The other big thing that I like about Nearpod is that it's the comprehension piece. So kids, you can set up questions. They have different styles of questions. You can do multiple choice, you can do open-ended, you can do polls. There's matching activities, fill in the blank, and you can use those to sort of quiz kids on the things that you're teaching. And then instead of calling on students, every kid is answering every question. And as a teacher, you can see their answers in real time, and you can say, oh, we're not getting this, we gotta slow down, or oh, we got this, let's speed up. And then also afterwards, you can print those reports, these are some examples of reports that I just pulled up. So I had like a question, and these are all their answers. So I can flip through and say yes, no, yeah, like who's got it, who didn't. This one I had a picture, it's Annie and Moby from BrainPop. And they needed to label the cause and the effect within the picture. So, and I can look at their pictures real quick and say, okay, they can do it in a picture. And then later in that lesson, we did it with a text as well. So, another new thing that I just learned about Nearpod is that you can turn any Nearpod quiz that you find or create into the Time to Climb game. So I wouldn't necessarily use this if I needed kids to spend a lot of time answering questions and thinking, because it's very fast-paced. But it's a fun review game. It's fun to throw in to kind of break up your lesson as well. So that I'm loving that Time to Climb feature in Nearpod. So, and that's part of the free as well. Any Nearpod questions? I wanted to make sure I left time at the end for any questions. I was also going to set up for you, let me slide out of this for a minute. So I wanted, in case anyone is interested in looking at one of the virtual field trips. So I just picked one that is particularly interesting. So this one, I'll show you too. If you're searching for lessons in the Nearpod lesson library, here's where you can search whether you want them to be free or paid, depending on your what you have with your classroom. So this is maybe we're studying something where it would be neat to go visit the Glacier National Park. So I'm going to set it up as student-paced. If you are on Nearpod and you want to go in and look at it, there's your code. So I'll leave that up for a few minutes. And you'll be able to flip through the different slides, and then you can see how when you go to different places, the kids are looking around and checking it out. So, does anyone have any kind of general questions while I leave that up for just a few minutes?
You know, the reports are also part of the free version?
Yes, yep, they are.
I have a comment with Seesaw.
Yeah.
I've also found it's useful for if you have like bulletin boards or something that your class created, to share that with
Yes.
parents, because they don't often get to come in and see the bulletin boards and the group work and stuff like that. So they, if your parents that can't come in, appreciate it.
getting that visual of what's going on across the room.
Yes, thank you. I actually use Seesaw as my parent messaging system. So you can send class announcements, class messages through Seesaw, and you can also message individually with parents as well. So I used to use Remind and Seesaw, and I went, I'm just going to use Seesaw this year. It's been going really well. So, okay. All right. Can I take this down now? So I'm going to just pop. Awesome. So thank you very much for coming. If you have questions, or if you really want to see some of Seesaw, I didn't realize that there wouldn't be like an Apple TV to AirPlay in here. So I can't get my iPad connected, and I can't really show you the student stuff as well on the laptop. It's a lot. You can use Seesaw on Chromebooks and iPads and all sorts of devices, but my favorite's the iPad. So if you want to see Seesaw a little bit closer, feel free to come up and I can open that up. You can see the student side of the app. And definitely reach out to me if you have any questions or want to connect, or just have anything comes up afterwards, or send me an email if you want me to send you a copy of the slide too. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the when you need my
just to make life easier. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Also, as a teacher,
Yeah, I need to figure out how to put that on the PPC website.
A lot of people just did that Bitly.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Right. I should have done that at the beginning. That would have been. I probably should have prefaced my presentation with that I'm by no means a tech guru. I use what works and makes sense to me, but there's so much to learn.
Oh, yeah. But I'm happy to go to
Yeah.
So you're up at Lewisburg.
I am.
I would ask you about a family that I can visit.
Yeah, there is. Yep, Meadowbrook. Yep. Are you from that area or?
I'm not.
No.
I went up to, is there any up there? Or-
Yeah.
I
Well,
know
Bucknell's there.
Yeah, but there, I think we went to a concert for doing blended learning.
Okay. Yeah, IU16 is there. The
Yeah, that's
CSIU.
right. But yeah, I love that town.
I do too. Well, I'm a Bucknell graduate. My husband and I are both from New York. And we met at Bucknell. I just met someone this morning. Yeah. Down there too.
Yes, it's net right now.
I'm so glad that they did that because there's really no easy place to go.
Nope.
Back to Paris Castle. Not like Hershey where there's tons of options too.
That's exactly true.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.